everyone, and welcome to another episode of Mavens of Manufacturing, which is the live broadcast series that features the powerful women from the shop floor to the C-suite who are changing the world through engineering and manufacturing. Today, I have Nikki Gonzales from Quotebeam. Welcome, Nikki. Thank you for joining us today. How are you doing this morning?
I'm good. Thanks for having me, Meaghan. Appreciate it.
Yeah. So I like to start off each episode with a question about who you are, what your background is, and what your journey looked like to where you are today with Quotebeam.
Yeah, so my journey is a little bit winding. I'm originally from Iceland. On LinkedIn, you might see my maiden name, Hallgrimsdottir. I moved to the US in 99 when I was in middle school. And I started working for my dad when I was in middle school. He is an electrical engineer turned entrepreneur. And I really kind of fell in love with solving technical problems and doing business. And I worked for my dad all throughout high school and college, basically tackled every part of the business that I could get involved in, from answering the phones to cleaning the office to doing the accounting. And I ended up in sort of a technical sales role kind of by accident because the sales guy wasn't in one day when a customer called, or a potential customer was looking for something. And since we were a small company, they said, hey, just run with it. When you need help, let us know. And at the time, he was working on sort of the early days of IoT, a tracking system for trucks and vast fleets of boats and different things like that to be able to track fuel efficiency. And I actually ended up selling a tracking system to this trucking company up in Washington, remotely from Texas. This was right when I was about to graduate from high school. And it really changed my perception of the sales profession when it comes to doing it in a technical role, because you're really more of a solutions, consultant at that point if you're doing it right. I thought, really all I did was answer their questions, show them how the system worked. They had a couple of problems they were looking to solve, and I helped them figure out how to solve them, and then they bought a system. And then they ended up emailing my dad, who they didn't know he was my dad at the time. It was just the boss. Telling them how happy they were with, the process and how I'd really helped them. And that's where the light bulb went off for me. I don't necessarily have to be an engineer because I'm a people person. I really like solving problems, but I don't like to sit at a desk in the back somewhere by myself all day. And that's where I realized that sales engineering is a thing. I had never really heard of that, but I got a business degree in international business from the University of Texas at Austin. I had a ton of fun. And then I still didn't really know what I wanted to do with that other than I always looked up to my dad. I thought that, he started a business, he invented some technology, and I ended up becoming a sales engineer for a Japanese factory automation company called Keyence. Because they were recruiting from the college, sort of, admissions office. And it was one of the few jobs that was technical that didn't require an engineering degree. And international business is a really broad business degree. So it's not like it has a, specific entry-level job that you go to, like when you go to accounting or finance or whatever. And I had never heard of factory automation or really been inside of a lot of factories or anything. But they take a really hands-on approach to the training of their employees. And so I, got pretty lucky in terms of just getting into that. And I learned all about sensors and factory floors and looking at processes and connecting information, solving problems. A lot of it was about sensing when things come down the line. And I ended up in their machine vision group, which at the time, machine vision was kind of newer. We programmed the cameras pretty much by hand. We would take a series of photos and set up cameras and lenses and things like that and look for ways to detect defects. And what I was seeing was that in these factories, they had people staring at a production line all day and looking at thousands of parts going by and having to try to manually, pick out issues. And I just saw this huge cool opportunity in being able to automate that so that those people could do something a little bit easier and more fun or more valuable, and not sit there all day just looking at products going by. And that's when I really kind of fell in love with the automation in a manufacturing setting. And I moved out to California. I got to work with all kinds of manufacturing industries, from, you know, wineries that do bottling, plastics manufacturing, food production, semiconductors, solar panels, all kinds of stuff. It was definitely hard work. I would, drive for hours a day with demo kits and set things up, and it was pretty exhausting, but it was extremely fulfilling and so educational. And I got to see how all kinds of things were made. And from there, I'm just a super curious person. So I couldn't stop at, once I was good at that, it was like, okay, what's the next thing? How do I make it better, further down the line or earlier in the process, so that by the time we catch a bad part, we're not having to recall an entire pallet of something.
Mhm.
So I kept kind of just growing in that field. I went from machine vision engineering to I worked for Festo, which is big in the mechatronics side of things, with pneumatics and electromechanical motion. Not necessarily robots, but basically, the sort of what we would call maybe gantry systems, um, helping engineer systems for machines and
Is
automation. Yeah.
is Festo the company? I'm probably going to make a lot of people upset if I get this wrong and assume it. But is Festo the company that came out with some of those like animalistic robots?
Yes.
Those are so cool. They have some of the greatest videos out there to show the movements with those robotics. And I just remember I would watch them because when I was in the trade publication industry, they were one of my favorite companies to kind of watch out for, because they were doing so many cool and amazing things with robotics and mechatronics and all that stuff to make them move really smoothly and just effortlessly. And it was really cool to see that. So that would have been a really fun experience to work with them and see all that stuff. That's great.
Yeah, so they have a whole division that studies like nature and animals, and then tries to see what ideas we can get from that to improve automation and robotics and stuff. And so it was a really fun place to work. And then I got into electromagnetic simulation, so more of the digital design of products, and virtual prototyping, so
Mhm.
that you can really design things to be easier to manufacture and to perform better, and to save time on having to create a bunch of different prototypes for physical testing. And then I got into data analytics for supply chains with the startup. And over the years, as these things, as we kept doing it, they started kind of converging. And these are things that kind of all used to be separate industries and separate technologies. And what we're seeing now in the manufacturing space is all of these things coming together to
Yeah.
create much smarter and easier to use technologies that are faster to deploy, they're cheaper to deploy, they're more flexible. And so there's a huge opportunity in manufacturing right now. And as we see, there's a huge demand um, for robotics and automation, to meet the need that we have for, a huge demand for goods, and, a limited capacity of producing them. And, with labor shortages and everything, it's a great time to be in automation. And there's so many advancements happening because of also the convergence of, smart software and AI, and, computing capabilities and connectedness can make the machines that we build more much easier to implement, both on a cost and, I think, effort basis. So
Mhm.
it's a really fun space to be in, and I've really enjoyed it. I've enjoyed learning about all the different facets of it, and problem solving. It's kind of how I got into where I am right now. And then Quotebeam is, my the CEO that I work for, Roman, he was a colleague of mine back at Festo,
Okay.
and um, he was designing machines, and he came up with this idea that, on the supply chain side, he had a lot of struggles with transparency of finding products, that the parts that he needed to build machines, and figuring out how much they were going to cost and where they would be available and when. Um,
Mhm.
And so I think there's huge opportunities right now just in all sectors of work to automate some parts of work to make it easier for the people that are doing the work. And in this case, if you're a machine designer, you shouldn't have to spend a huge amount of your time just tracking down quotes for parts and the things you need to build a machine.
Right.
That's something that we can hopefully do a lot better with some smart software and just connecting the world, right? I'm a huge proponent too of small businesses, and I think as we automate more jobs, there's so much more opportunity for entrepreneurship, for
Yeah.
people to start small businesses around all this technology. And what we see with Quotebeam is kind of a new way of connecting brick and mortar businesses that maybe in the past just had a book of business, people knew how to contact them, but now they need to get online somehow. And instead of just having only the few big companies that can really invest in the technology to run a huge e-commerce operation, we have the opportunity to create marketplaces that can connect small
Okay.
sellers all over the place and give them the same sort of technology that you would dealing with larger companies. And I think that benefits everybody in the market.
Okay. So how long has Quotebeam been around? You're considered a startup, correct?
Yeah. So the
Okay.
company has been incorporated for a little while, but we really only took it full time earlier this year. So we're very new and still working on a lot of the technology and growing our marketplace. So we are actually kind of going to be doing a little bit more of an official launch in January once we have some of our features that we're working on more developed and more partners on the platform. So right now we're just actively developing and building our ecosystem. We've
Okay.
been working with some really great distributors in the Bay Area that are testing everything, and we have some great customers as well. So it's a very exciting place to be, but it's definitely pretty new, and we have a lot of things that we're very excited about. But we would like to bring, marketplaces. Traditionally, you think of like Amazon, right? You can go on Amazon and find almost anything from a bunch of small sellers, but it's very transactional, right? You find
Mhm.
something that's available, you see a price, you can buy it. Um, Manufacturing and automation is a little bit more of a complex sale. A lot of times, you're not just going to buy a couple of parts with your credit card and be done with it.
Right.
So what we want to bring to this is a conversational element to if companies nowadays have a harder time meeting with their customers in person. So how do we create those connections and those relationships between buyers and sellers beyond just going online and clicking and buying? So we're building this conversational element into the marketplace where you could chat directly with a supplier there and start a relationship and continue that relationship beyond just buying a part. So and a lot of these types of purchases, you end up, wanting to request quotes and get customized. You may want to plan production schedules and different things like that. So there's a huge communication element to this as well, um,
Right.
to where we want to build that infrastructure into the marketplace, so that people are not having to spend hours on phone calls and emails and documentation back and forth and all the things that go into buying these types of industrial B2B products.
Mhm. So right now, I mean, there's a lot of pain points for manufacturers because of the supply chain disruption and the increase in shipping costs and all that other stuff. So, what sort of challenges has that caused Quotebeam to really help your customers successfully? Or, on the other side of things, how has it helped you kind of win some customers over because you're able to connect them to the right resources? And then part two of that question is this something that you're just focusing on right now within the United States? Or are you hoping to create partnerships on an international level as well too, and getting companies from other countries to come into the marketplace?
Yeah, that's two good questions. One of the things we're seeing right now that is an immediate kind of win, even though we don't have all of our features up and running and stuff, is people, they really need to get certain parts and they're having a hard time finding them. Right, lead times are really long right now. So if you're having to
Mhm.
go to a factory, if something isn't in stock somewhere, you're looking at 8 to 12 weeks or longer. And so there are just small distributors, small businesses, mom and pop shops, medium-sized businesses that have warehouses full of parts all over the place, all over the country and all over the world. And a lot of that inventory is not online anywhere. And so it's hard if it's not your local distributor, if your local distributor is out of something, how do you know who might have that part in stock and can sell it to you if you need something in a pinch? And that's where kind of connecting multiple buyers and sellers in a marketplace, we've actually helped a lot of people find something that they didn't think they could find in stock. And they've been told, okay, it's not in stock anywhere. Factory doesn't have stock. Lead time is X. And their current suppliers don't have anything. And we've been able to, connect them with somebody that has it and, kind of save the day. It's unfortunately not always the case, but bringing that inventory online and allowing smaller companies to find new customers that way has been a big win for both sides of our marketplace. People that absolutely need a part because they need a spare for a machine or something went down. You just can't wait 12 weeks, right? And then on the flip side, for smaller businesses that maybe have been, struggling a little bit, although in automation, I mean, demand is huge. So most of the companies are selling quite a bit. But there's always a mismatch when you don't, there might be people that need something on the other side of the country that normally don't know to do business with you. But they can find you online, see that you have something in stock that they need, and then they can start a relationship and do more business together in the future, whereas otherwise, they wouldn't have. And to answer your second question, we are focused on North America at first, just for the sake of, resources. And we want to have, a robust number of suppliers together to support the buyers that are coming in. But we are already seeing traffic from all over the world, actually, people looking for parts that are finding our website because we have a lot of parts listed from a lot of different manufacturers and a lot of distributors that are selling those parts. And so we're not marketing actively to anybody, but that is the nature of the internet. When people are looking, if they can find it, it's a great source of fulfilling needs that in the past, it's like, well, who do I even call? I don't know.
That's fantastic. And most of the parts that you are helping manufacturers find are within automation, correct? Or there are other disciplines that you are touching on, or is it just mostly automation?
So our focus right now is industrial automation parts, like electrical parts and electromechanical parts that are used to build machines or maintain machines at manufacturers. We have both engineers, design engineers, procurement buyers, and then, MRO or people that maintain machines or need parts for that. They can all come to our site. We have also people from other industries like construction that have found us because we carry some selection of parts that they might need. We're focused on the automation industry right now because that's the pain point we know to solve. That's where our background comes from. But what we are planning is there are, other verticals that could potentially use the same technology to solve their problems as well. So there's definitely, a lot of opportunity to replicate this type of thing across other industries. What we want to do is just be really good at what we do within our vertical before we just try to, go for everything.
That makes sense as a startup, because if you take on too much, it can become very stressful, and then you start hitting deadlines, and then you can kind of get lost in the weeds if you take on too much. So we're talking a lot about automation, and that's like one of the buzzwords now going through the sector. And before I continue with my question, there's a bunch of people already viewing in. We have Gail, Jessica, who loves pneumatics, David, who is really big in the ERP space sometimes with Sam Gupta. Thank you guys for listening in and offering some comments. Grace Donovan, loving this discussion, was in Jackson, Michigan this week, learning about how manufacturers implemented robotic vision control for inspection of small components. It has so many interesting applications. It absolutely does. And I'm wondering what your insight is when there's some people still on the fence with automation and automating some of their processes because they have this misconception that it might take away some of the jobs, and then it is actually helping filling some of those jobs as well too, where it's providing more time for us to look into other opportunities or to create other opportunities by helping us with the manual work. And I was just wondering if you had insight on, what do manufacturers need to consider or avoid with the whole automation talk and thinking about automating their processes? What do you see or hear from some of your customers when it comes to automating their processes?
I'll speak from my experience, but generally we're never automating someone out of a job completely. Because the thing is, automation is very helpful for a lot of processes, but there are not that many that can be completely automated to where you don't need people at all anymore. I mean, warehouses and different things like that, yeah, there's a lot that you can in the news lately there's been like, oh, robot waiters, but all they do is they bring the food from the kitchen to the table. They can't do the full extent of the job that the waiter does. But it saves them from having to walk back and forth all day, and they can spend more time, focusing on the customer. And the same goes for a manufacturing floor. You're generally not automating someone entirely out of a job. You may be freeing up a few of their hours to where they can do something a little bit more impactful, or you may just be increasing the production that the existing team can handle by automating some of the parts of the job that are really labor intensive, really repetitive, or dangerous. And generally, we're seeing when manufacturers invest in automation, they're being able to increase their output and the quality of their product, and actually hire more people because their business goes up. So it is kind of an inverse relationship. People think, oh, you're automating people out of a job, or you're hiring a robot instead of a person. But it's actually predicted that the implementation of more automation is actually going to create like 58 million more jobs in the world over the next few years. So it's really about changing the work we're doing a little bit, and generally we see that companies end up hiring more people. Maybe not right off the bat, like I'm going to implement this system and then hire 3 more people, but it leads to an increase in efficiency and an increase in business so that these companies can grow. So really, I think you have to also think about it as it's not just implementing automation, it's changing the way that your employees are working. So it is a human resources type, decision as well, right? So just don't leave your people out of it and think, I'm going to buy this robot and it's going to replace these people and it has nothing to do with the people working on the floor. No, you can, get the people excited about it and they will work with it and their job will get better and they will get more efficient in what they're doing. And I actually just shared an article with our users at Quotebeam a couple of days ago. Automation actually increases or decreases employee stress. If they have access to more automation to help them do their job, stress levels go down, because right now most people are overworked and understaffed and, trying to do too many things at once and, wearing too many hats with too little support. And I think most employees, if the change management part of it is handled correctly, and the messaging and the business, hey, we're investing in this so that we can all grow and do better, it's actually a boon to workers, and it makes the job so much more attractive over time if we can, make the parts that the people do easier and more enjoyable to do.
I think that's an interesting stat too, because if your employees aren't happy, they're not going to be as productive versus when they are happy and content. And I think automation is great too, because a lot of those manual operations can cause a lot of stress on your body too, and you can get a lot of injuries that are, some are short term, but also a lot of long term injuries too. As you get older, all that stress can really do some damage on your body. So it's good to see. I'm excited to see what comes out of it. I know a lot of the people that I follow, like Jake Call and Aaron and Will and Chris, they follow automation very specifically, and they share some really cool content, and it's exciting to see. And I think if we can put that in front of the next generation workforce, they can connect the dots to some of the basics that they're learning in school and get really excited to come join engineering and manufacturing. Allie Donnelly commented
it makes the job more fun to want to join,
absolutely.
Especially for younger people.
Allie said, you two are my idols. And Alicia, this has been amazing to listen to while working. Keep kicking ass, ladies. Happy Friday.
Oh, thanks, Allie.
She's awesome. She does a lot of cool posts with some of those drawings. Have you seen those?
Yes, and I also love the pictures of her panels. Like, it's there. I have not seen a lot of ladies, in that space in terms of electrical technicians or automation engineers, and there's a few women like just showcasing what they're doing day to day at work right now, and I think so many girls can see that and go, that's actually a really cool thing that I would like to do. And I think in the past, we just didn't have a whole lot of representation of what it looked like to be a woman in manufacturing, and all the cool different things that we can learn and do.
Yeah, she just shared one recently and she was just covered in like dirt or dust or something. And
Yep.
she's like, sometimes you just get dirty when you have a long day at work. I think that's really amazing. And I love seeing her journey too, because she's actually going through an apprenticeship right now. So it's really cool to see all these I really want one of her drawings and just frame it because I love how detailed they get in, and they're so easy to follow, and they're very educational, especially for someone that's not in that space. I've learned a lot, so much from her post alone. When we chatted before, we were also talking about women in manufacturing and engineering, and there is this STEM imbalance in regard to women, not just within the AI space, but in other areas as well too. So I've talked to some CAD, companies, and automotive companies, AI companies. And as a whole, we're around, anywhere between 28 and 33%. I've seen different statistics from different sources, but generally within each discipline, it seems like we're around 1 to 2%, maybe 3. So I was wondering, if you have any ideas or put any thought of what we can do all together to really get younger women excited about some of these opportunities, because it seems to be, I've talked to several schools and they do what they can with some of the funding that they have. I've talked to several manufacturers, and some of the responses are, well, we can't find anyone with the talent. And then I talk to the schools and they're like, we can't make connections to the manufacturers. So I feel like there's this disconnect going on, and we need to be proactive in connecting those dots. So I wanted to know what some of your thoughts are, or if you had any ideas on how we can really connect, with the next generation workforce, but really get girls too excited about it. Because everywhere I go, it seems there's like 10 guys and then 1 or 2 girls. And I really want to get them excited and let them know that there's so many opportunities in this sector. And if they can just, get through that initial intimidation of maybe being the only girl, they'll have a really successful career if they continue to pursue it. So what are some of your ideas?
Well, I got lucky that my dad was my role model. He was right there in front of me, and he was I grew up in Iceland, which is a lot less gender, I think, specific in terms of who does what. And so I never grew up with this idea like certain jobs are for women and for men or whatever. But my dad was really supportive. And so I think, but I never saw any role models online, or also when growing up, we were talking before the show about the social media, and things are so much different, right? Things are moving at a pace that we haven't seen before. I took a little bit of time off when I had kids, a couple of years ago, and coming back to LinkedIn, I was like, dang, all of a sudden there's like Allie showing, her electrical panels, and there's Alicia with her, controls business. And I had never seen these women before doing this stuff. And so I honestly, and this is something I need to do as well. I need to get over myself, and just go out there and share what we're doing more. I think since yes, there is statistically a smaller percentage of us doing what we're doing, we need to make sure that we represent ourselves and get out there and tell the world what we are doing so that the girls can see it. And then over time, hopefully as they see us, they'll see, hey, this is something that I can do if I'm interested in it, right? And I think these industries are becoming so much more interesting for anybody that I can't imagine a world where girls wouldn't be interested in working with machine vision and robots and, AI and all this stuff. So I think we just need to put ourselves out there more. I think women oftentimes, we can be a little bit insecure, or we don't want to we don't want to go out and brag about what we're doing, but that's not what we're doing. We need to just, kind of showcase what's going on and the cool stuff that we can do. And I think that, on a small level is something that we can do right now. But systematically, I think we need to really overhaul our education system in a lot of ways. To teach new stuff, because the world is moving faster than it ever has. Technology is coming up. All the technologies are really intertwined too. Like going into software engineering doesn't mean that you're like, sitting there just writing C code. Like you could be programming a robot. All these things are converging. So app development, you could do that in a manufacturing setting, design. There's a lot of cool different things that have never been available as a job before. And they are now. So we just need to get out there more and tell people about it.
I think too, we really need to like focus on who some of our state leaders are and who some of our government leaders are as well, because it really is going to start from the top and getting that legislation to pass. Because I've heard a variety of different experiences where some people had the courses and the programs that included these different types of trade skills, but then other schools didn't have the funding, so they never had a program like that, and the kids really didn't even know what manufacturing was. And then kids have their own personal experiences if they're from a family that is heavy into engineering and manufacturing. I know for me personally, my dad was in manufacturing for my entire life. We didn't really talk about what he did. I knew he was gone a lot because he was in sales. But then I worked with him one time at a tooling company, and that was very stressful because he kind of put a lot of pressure on me to kind of run some of the shipping stuff, even though that wasn't my position. But he was just like, you still need to be the best because you're my daughter. And I'm just like, I'm here to just sweep floors and pack tools. Like I don't know any of the processes, but he wanted me to know everything because he didn't want to. I think he didn't want me to embarrass him if I didn't know something. But then later on, I'm doing Mavens of Manufacturing, and all of a sudden now he's taking interest in what I'm doing, and he's talking to me more about stuff that he did. Just like, it took this long, really? Okay, but I want to pull up some of these comments because I think they're touching on that as well too. Christina Harrington, that's not enough female representation. Great question, Meaghan. How do we attract younger women and get them excited? Women groups should make a concerted effort to promote STEM and manufacturing careers. United, we can be a much stronger and more influential voice. And I think that's true. And I think there are groups out there, like the Women in Manufacturing. There's the Women in Technology group. There's the Women in Automation that you and I are part of. I don't do a lot of talking in that group. I do more of a listening type role just to see what kind of issues and pain points you all are talking about, and some of the ideas that you have. And it's really interesting. And I think that's a thing to remember too. Just because you're not an expert in one discipline, don't be shy to like maybe join a group just for an educational purpose, because I think the more educated we all are about what's going on, the better we can connect people too that are in the related fields.
Yeah.
And but definitely being proactive and getting in front of where the students are. I know with TikTok, that's something a lot of people are kind of on the fence about. It's like what Facebook used to be when that first came out. But I think it's really interesting from an educational standpoint and getting in front of the younger crowd and showing them what like CNC machining is or what other processes are out there. I think if we can do more stuff like that, maybe would be on the right path to get kids to ask questions and say, hey, I want to try that out. Courtney, Women's Support Group, Networking, Women in Iowa Group, etc. Weekly meetups with Women, ATC Automation is an education partner also. That's great. Thank you for sharing that, Courtney. So, I mean, I've talked to some of my daughter's friends too, and it's the same thing. They just don't know what manufacturing is or what's involved in it. And
yeah, I had never heard it. Like even graduating college, when I applied for that job with Kians, I was like, what is this stuff? Like, it looks cool. I want to learn it. You're willing to teach it to me? Okay. But if they had said, okay, you need to know all this stuff on your resume, I would have never applied, because it's just, where did I would have, even with an engineer for a dad, I didn't have access to that stuff. And I think now with the internet, if we can show more factory tours or just even like the cool content that Jake is putting out, like I, for a while, got down a rabbit hole on YouTube of watching CNC machine videos because it's just so cool to see the things being made.
yeah.
And maybe not everybody responds to that, but I think the women that would want to go into these fields, right, the more they see of that kind of like cool stuff happening, they could see that like, hey, that's something that you can actually learn and make good money doing, and it's a valuable job. And I think the other thing about, increasing representation in manufacturing and all these different tech, like the STEM imbalance, right? It's also very important. Right now we're developing and coming up with a lot of technology at a very rapid pace that's going to change the way we work, the way that we make things, the way that, our world works. And we want different inputs and influences on that. If you have all like just a group of 10 people that have the exact same experience, the exact same demographics, they may be the best at one particular thing. That's not where innovation happens, though. Innovation happens when different ideas and different perspectives and different technologies converge to create something new. And that's, I think,
Yeah.
we're at a really exciting time for manufacturing because the revolutions in wireless technology, communications, data processing, vision and robotics and AI, all these things are coming together. It also means there's a ton of new jobs that we don't even know exactly what they're going to look like 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily have to be like a PhD in a certain type of process engineering to be a super valuable employee in one of these manufacturing businesses running something very cool. I think it's all about it's very valuable to our businesses to have different perspectives, and as we design these technologies, for them to be designed with all these different perspectives in mind, because we're going to come up with so much more cool stuff and all kinds of new jobs that
Yeah.
10 of the same type of people sitting in a room would just never even think of because they don't have that perspective or connect those dots.
I agree. I did post a comment from Grace. I guess there's an Emily the engineer on TikTok, so I'm gonna definitely look her up
I'm
and
definitely
see
going to check that out. Yeah, thank
what
you.
kind of video content she's creating. And then Roman said, "How do we get in front of younger crowds since they don't tune into LinkedIn?" And I think that's a really good question because kids aren't on LinkedIn unless they're told to be on LinkedIn. And I've tried getting my daughter on LinkedIn to kind of scout out potential employers or opportunities within the medical space because that's the industry she wants to go in. And she refuses to do it. She's just like, I don't need that. And I think we kind of need to change that a little bit. So when they are in high school wanting to find careers, maybe have some sort of course to get on LinkedIn since it is the business platform or the professional platform, or if it's the new kind of LinkedIn, because it changes, right? Every platform changes. But with TikTok, I think it would be interesting, and I might test this out personally for myself. I might start putting some clips of Maven interviews on TikTok and see what kind of feedback I get or response I get. Because I think just trying that out and getting the views and just being consistent with that might spark something. Who knows? And it might get people excited because you're right. I get sucked into those CNC videos too, especially the ones where it shows, it not working.
Oh, yeah.
Did I freeze up?
Yep.
Sorry.
That's okay. I wasn't sure what to do, but there you are.
Sorry about that, everyone. But just getting consistent on those platforms, I think, because I love those CNC videos, as I was trying to say before I froze. And I like the ones where it shows the failures too, because that's part of manufacturing as well. Sometimes these technologies fail, and we got to figure out, okay, how can we prevent that from happening again and make the process better? So that might be coming in 2022. I might have like a Maven's TikTok channel.
If anything, yeah, just repurpose some of the content onto those platforms. And even if you're not getting a ton of views right now, this thing, it lives online forever, right? So eventually, I'm sure it'll get in front of more girls there. But yeah, you're right. They're not going to be coming to LinkedIn, not yet anyway.
Right.
So we need to do a better job putting it out in more places, I think.
I brought it up in an event that I had in October, and I literally heard one of them go, "What is LinkedIn?" I had no idea. And I was just like, okay, we need to change that. We were getting a lot of comments. I found that female veterans and female athletes are really attracted to roles in manufacturing, not isolated to these, but they can be a great profile to attract. LinkedIn is starting to become compulsory in colleges. They make you create a profile for marks. that's awesome. But I think we should do it in high school as well too.
Yep.
And then our year-end project was creating a LinkedIn profile, resume, and getting out there. I'm actually hoping along the line we can get rid of paper resumes because they annoy me.
Paper, a lot of things right now, like that you would be surprised, but one of the reasons why we're so passionate about what we're doing at Quotebeam is some of these distributors out there, they are still taking orders via fax. I called, I found some parts in stock that somebody was frantically looking for. I found somebody that had like 50 of them. And I had to make 3 phone calls to find out if they had them in stock, if they could sell them, where it could be shipped. And then I gave them a credit card over the phone, and I was supposed to get a receipt via email. And I waited like 2 hours and I got nothing. So I called them back and they're like, oh yeah, your credit card processing didn't go through. So let's try again. And then they finally emailed me a picture of a paper where they had written the credit card receipt on. And and another distributor I tried to contact, they literally only had a phone number and a fax number on their website. No email, no other way to contact them. And you tell kids, like, do they even know what a fax is now? I don't know. So
I don't think they do.
There's a lot of low-hanging fruit in this industry that we can help make the jobs more attractive too, just by maybe updating how the work is done a little bit. Makes it great for current employees, makes their job probably a little bit less stressful to not have to like handwrite credit card receipts, but also definitely makes these jobs more attractive to the younger generation.
Yeah. So, I mean, all of the kids are on cell phones, right? I was telling you how I grounded my daughter from her cell phone, but they all know how to make video. And this is in relation to TikTok too. So, I mean, first impression is everything. And I feel like just text on a piece of paper is not really a good first impression. Not everyone's good at writing, not everyone's good at condensing information down. But the next generation, they're all really creative and great at making video. So, can we try out at least video resumes? Because I think that's a great way to just see the personality of someone. And you can tell because they all get in front of their cameras nowadays and they take so many dang photos. It's ridiculous. But like, can we try that out and see if it works? And I mean, it will cut back on the paper and it will just be a really fun way too, and you can share it and everybody else can get kind of a general idea of, what this person's going to be like personality wise and if they'll be able to be easy to work with. And it's adding another skill set because if they're great with video, that means they can help your marketing department out, tell your brand story. I don't know. Like, I think that would be fun. We're getting a lot of comments. David, Ingor, Grace, thank you so much for joining. Allie is adding some more. I used to use dial-up. We've come a long way. We sure have. My kids have no idea what a fax is. My daughter doesn't either. They're just chatting amongst each other.
Cool.
But I just wanted to say thank you, Nikki, for coming on to Mavens today and sharing your experience. You have so many talents and so much experience, and I think you're just a great guest to have on because you show that, engineering and manufacturing is very dynamic and there's a lot of opportunity, and you don't necessarily have to be good at math or science. You can have other skills, and if you're curious for learning and knowledge, this sector is the place to be because you've learned so much and you've had connections with so many great companies already, like Festo, and Quotebeam is doing amazing things. So I really appreciate taking time out of your day and coming to share your journey with us. And before I let you go, I just want to, ask you one final question. What advice would you give the next generation, about pursuing their career pathway to kind of hook them to join us here in engineering and manufacturing? Because we need the workers. We need more people to come. And not only that, we need teachers too and educators. So what advice would you give someone who might be on the fence of what they really want to do?
Don't be scared to just try it. I think we're also at a point where like you don't have to have the same career for life anymore. You don't have one of the skill I think the biggest skill we need for the future is the ability to evolve and learn because the technologies we're going to be working with are constantly changing. So if you're the type of person that's curious and you are open to learning new things, then the manufacturing industry or engineering or automation or any of these places is an awesome place to be, because you don't have to be doing the same thing year over year. You can learn new skills, and every time you transfer to the next part of the manufacturing process or whatever, there's so many opportunities that are adjacent to each other. And once you know one process, it adds value to you doing another one. And that's where the innovation happens in this industry, I think. So don't be afraid, like, oh, if I'm going to become engineer, machinist, like, it's also not a permanent career choice. That learning that will be valuable regardless of whether or not you choose to keep doing that exact same thing for a long time. So get excited about learning and just pursuing opportunities that are interesting to you. And that's where I found it's been an unexpected value to me, because I learned like 5 different things that didn't connect, and now all of a sudden they all work together. The future is going to be even more like that. And there's just so much opportunity to learn new stuff that it's extremely fun. And don't be scared to take the leap, because you can always change your mind later. Like, there's nothing wrong with that.
I think those are great points, especially for those students who aren't quite sure, what they want to do, and they have skill sets in a variety of areas. And it's even a place where you can kind of make your own thing as well too. So if you don't like what you're seeing and you have the skill sets to problem solve and come up with solutions on your own, you can actually, take that entrepreneur pathway as well too and be really successful at it. So all great points. Thank you again for joining us. To all of those who joined and added your comments, I really appreciate it. We have one more episode before the new year. So please join us next week for the last episode of Mavens of Manufacturing of 2021. And I hope you guys have a great weekend. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Thanks, Megan.
Thank you. This has been another episode of Mavens of Manufacturing. Subscribe for more and make sure to tune in next time.